Hola, buenos días.
Hola, buenos días. Ocelote, Carlos Rodríguez Santiago, as many people know already. And let's do the interview for Acer.
Okay, so I know you from the time I was in SK before. So the first place I want to actually start with you, because everyone knows you from League of Legends, everyone knows the streaming. I've seen a lot of these things come up in interviews over and over again. But one of the things I haven't seen you really talk about in any kind of depth is your time in World of Warcraft. Because actually I remember before at that, you actually were in SK but for World of Warcraft. And this was a competitive game, it was 3-on-3. From just what are your first memories when you think of your time playing competitive World of Warcraft? Like, what type of a player were you? How big was it compared to League of Legends now?
Well, as always, the community was had up and downs. You know, has these parts of the community, these people that actually supported the players, and this part of the community that actually were so toxic towards the players. They were toxic towards me, towards every player, and they were kind towards me and towards every player, anyways. So in terms of community, nothing changed. But I mean, it was the first game I started competing in offline events, right? When I played Counter-Strike, I went to 1 or 2 events, but I didn't really, it wasn't really a high level. So that was my first contact with esports, and obviously I feel like it was like inside of my heart, sometimes I think about those days back in the day, and it feels really great, to be honest. It feels really great, because it's the first time I saw IEM, first time I saw, I don't know, every single event. It was just crazy. It was really good.
Back when you were a World of Warcraft player, you're saying there like some people were toxic to you, so obviously like you had some fan attention back then. Would you say you had like a similar personality as you do now? Because obviously, since you've done a lot of streaming, you've had time to think about like how do I come across to people. You know, like the things people like about you or the things you want to put across to them. So was your personality similar back then? Has it changed since then?
Well, it's true that the more mature you get, the more things you learn. And obviously, I fixed a lot of mistakes I had, but it was nothing to do with my face towards the community or whatever. It was just to be a better person, So I still commit mistakes, obviously, but I was in the past I was a little bit different than now. I was a really good guy, I have to admit, but on the other hand, I had this really people call it passionate, but I call it retarded, actions when something happens, the way I acted wasn't the right one. And, years experience gave me the answer that wasn't good. So until now, again, I'm not perfect, but I try to every day get better as a person and player. In terms of fan base, I remember the first tournament when a guy came to me and said, "Oh my God, you're Ocelote." And how the hell this guy knows me? I'm nobody. Well, I saw you playing in the qualifier for regional finals and this and that. And I was like, holy damn, man, like this is just crazy, And there is where everything started. The next event, I got recognized by more and more people. Suddenly, when I had my SK t-shirt on, everything went higher and better. Until now, which is just crazy. I go anywhere, like any event, even when I go to the street to buy bread or whatever, people recognize me, which is crazy, man.
I mean, part of the reason I wanted to start on World of Warcraft as well is because when I look at the overall fan response to you, so positive and negative, so you have a lot of fans, obviously you have like a lot of haters as well, people who say like it's not any good or he's washed up or whatever. The reason this is interesting is because League of Legends as a game has a similar scenario, has a lot of fans, has a lot of haters too, like people who play other games think it's not as skilled, or oh, you play League of Legends, that's easy, isn't Dota hard? There's a lot of like stereotypes out there, let's say. But the interesting thing is, what I know from talking to people who were around World of Warcraft is that actually World of Warcraft was like a very, very hard game. Like the skill level for the individual players was supposed to be incredibly high. Like a commentator for World of Warcraft once described it to me and said, like unless you were at their level, like level 80 and like some top level guy, you yourself wouldn't even know what was happening in the game. So like, was it really like this high skilled a game? Because I mean, it's interesting that people would have all these criticisms of you now. This was obviously a very skilled game to play from what I've heard.
Well, there's 2 points, okay? I think I will explain this the right way, and I think it's a very good explanation that many people will understand. So, World of Warcraft, individual skill-wise, was way higher than League of Legends. I remember, in League of Legends we got 4 abilities plus 6 abilities per champion. And I remember with World of Warcraft I had 59 macros with my warrior, and I used most of them in every arena. So individual skill-wise, you need to be better in World of Warcraft. But what's the point? The point is that if the skill cap is really high, the more you train and the more gifted you are, the more talent you got, the easier for you to be professional player. So what happens right now in League of Legends? Skill cap is lower. I'll take that. But 50 million players, being at the top for 2.5 years of 50 million players takes way more skill than what it took for me in World of Warcraft. Because the game has a not so high skill cap, so everybody can actually reach that. So it's a matter of 1% or 2% that you are better than the opponent if you want to make the difference. So I think this is a really good point, and people should understand those Dota players that hate League of Legends. I don't hate Dota, to be honest. Dota is more skillful than League of Legends, but that makes the game easier for professional players. I would love League of Legends to be like Dota, so there is more margin in between me and the amateur players. Right now in League of Legends, there is not that much margin in between me and amateur players because the skill cap is not that high. So,
I mean, what this leads me into thinking about was another interesting way I've heard people describe the difference between games like the MOBA games and like games that people obviously know are very skilled, like Quake or something. Obviously, in games like Quake, it is very much skill-based because the strategy as well, but a lot of it's going to come down to if you have very good aim, etc. You can't really be a top player unless you have good aim, etc. But I've heard people say positively about League of Legends that the good thing about League of Legends is, okay, maybe the skill cap's lower, but that also means, a bit like Counter-Strike, it's more of like the strategy and the team play will win out. Because obviously one person can't just rape everyone in the whole server, so you need more of the team effort to get through. So discussing what you just said there, like the difference between World of Warcraft and League of Legends, is it the case that it was like a difficult transition at all into League of Legends where you were going from being like an individually very gifted player and now you're having to figure out how do I work with 4 different guys and do I have to focus on other areas because I can't just work on my skills all day? That's not going to make us win the match. Like, what do you think?
Well, at the beginning, somehow I was able to carry 1v5, but right now, nowadays, the tournaments, the pre-made games are working differently, you know? You cannot win 1v5. You need your whole team behind you. So even when I was playing football, when I was playing paddle, when I was playing any sport, I was always this guy that plays as winger, that tries to do all the tricks and score all the goals, you know? I was very, very selfish when it comes down to that. And right now, well, when I changed to League of Legends and when I saw how everything developed, I realized that, oh my God, I cannot be a one-man army anymore, you know? This needs to be a team and I need to change the way I work. It wasn't anymore about me, it was more about my team. It wasn't anymore about me improving my individual skills, but improving the team skills. So everything changed for me. It's a beautiful change for me actually, because from it's just completely different, like completely different. And I was never used to use that kind of playstyle or kind of like way to work. So yeah, I would say for me the transition wasn't too easy. I had this clamp of 8 months, 6 months, where I wasn't playing that good, but that was part of the transition. So that's it.
Because if we now talk about how you individually have played in League of Legends, okay, so in the first period, you were obviously famous not only for your play, but for the streaming as well. You were one of the bigger personalities, and also early on, definitely considered one of the best players at your position, etc. But I've seen kind of, not just from the haters, etc., but I've seen kind of a trend growing where people want to say, okay, Ocelote's not as good now, or maybe they even give reasons. Like I saw a Korean player, I forget exactly his name, but he said when someone, I think he might have been a mid player, someone asked him about you. He was going through all the foreign mid players. Okay, when he came to you, he said, you might remember it, he said something like, yeah, like your Cassiopeia didn't work very well anymore, and now your Oleana had been exposed or something like that. So yeah, his kind of point was that you as an individual player perhaps couldn't be stronger anymore as you used to be before. Like, how have you seen the meta change in terms of your individual play, and like, do you still consider yourself like the star of SK in that sense? Should you still be the team guy carrying the team in that sense?
Well, I still consider myself the star of SK, and I consider myself the star of League of Legends in the whole world. Still, well, that is pretty obvious. But on the other hand, I had to change my champion pool because the game needed to. Cassiopeia is one of my favorite champions. LeBlanc is one of my favorite champions, but I cannot use them right now, even though they are extremely good to show up, you know, to be like the star and this and that. They are not good anymore for pre-med. So I use the champions that are good for pre-med for my team as well. And right now I consider myself one of the players with the most team play of the whole scene. I really think so.
In terms of people, what I said there though, the kind of stereotype that people throw out there, okay, so ocelote's fallen off or he's washed up or whatever, like, is there something people aren't seeing about how you've changed your game or how the team has changed or how League of Legends as a game itself has changed? Do you think they're missing something out there? What would your counter to that be, you know?
Well, obviously, it's a transition that happens in between months, even years. So, obviously, they really don't even think about it, you know? But the real truth is that I had to change the way I play. I had to change the way my team plays. Before, back in the days, my team was a one-man army, literally. Like, it was just me. If I had a bad game, we lose. And that's why we lost some tournaments, actually, because you might have a bad game, you know? And the way I played was extremely aggressive, and it's a double-edged sword. And I decided to change it for the better of my team, and it's going pretty well right now. So people don't realize that, obviously, because those are factors that are not really... They are present, but they are right there, but people just don't see them, you know? They don't see the work behind, they don't see, as I said, the transition. So, yeah, it's really a factor that is being missed by everybody.
So, do you think, in general, I mean, like I said, one of the people who said this was a player as well, it wasn't just like a random hater online. Do you think in terms of people overall, there's an element where because you're scrutinized more, because you're more in the spotlight, this is why people are kind of more down on you over anything? I mean, for example, okay, let's put it in like numbers. Would you still consider yourself like a top 5 mid in Europe?
Oh, yes. Yeah, of course, like no doubt. And top 2, even.
So you and who?
Me and who? I think we are pretty tight. I think top 3, okay? Not in this order. Froggen, Alexic, and me. Not in this order. I think those 3 players are different. Froggen is a very good mechanical player. He's very good 1v1, but has not much team play. Alexic has the backup of the team. His team does extremely well. He helps so much with his aggressiveness to have objectives and stuff. So you could say that Alexic is the perfect balance in between the individual skill and team play. And right now, I would say that I got the most team play of the mid laners by far. Maybe not the highest individual skill wise. Yeah. Maybe because of the heroes I play, which are not as better 1v1 as, I don't know, for instance, Alexic plays Kha'Zix, Zed, and stuff. Those are beasts 1v1. I play Araneae with, I'm not going to say the runes. I play Araneae with runes that are not very good in lane, but in teamfights, they wreck. People don't see that, you know.
Okay, actually, so if we just continue that line of thought, then if you're saying you're top 3 in Europe, I mean, would that put you top 10 in the world, all mids combined, every single mid in the world?
I think the European mids are the best mids. So I would say I'm about top 5 world, but it's really, I would say I'm top 5 world in mids, but it's really hard to say because right now, I mean, tomorrow I face Rapid Star in mid, another Korean mid laners. You never know. From 3 months to another 3 months, things might change. So right now, my opinion is that yeah, I could be, well, I am top 5 world. But as I said, it's really not sure because things might change pretty fast.
It's interesting you say that though, that you think the Europeans have the best mids, because I did an interview with Doublelift and he actually said the same thing, even though I know he's very favoured towards Korean players at all the other positions, but he said at mid, he thought Europe had the best. So can you think of a thing that unites all the top mid players that you can think of from Europe that would make them better overall than the Koreans in that sense? Because obviously, I mean, if we're just looking at the individual skills, if we list off the best Korean people, fans are going to go, yeah, they're the best, they're top, you know, the guys for the Blaze and Frost and Messiah, they're going to go, oh, these are the best, they're most skilled players. So what are we missing there? What makes Europe better for the mids, do you think?
Well, first of all, I think European mid laners are better because we got the most aggressive mind style, but on the other hand, we got this backup that says, I might die if I go too aggressive. So it's actually a good balance. And most important thing is that when I see American mid players play, they slow down the game. Like both mid laners slow down the game. They want to farm all the time and this and that. But in Europe, even though we've got a pretty huge farm, we always trade 1v1 and stuff like this. It's really fun to watch. when it comes into Korean mid laners, they are really good, but I think they're a little bit behind than Europe. Then AD carries, I think NA used to have the best. Right now, it's I think in between Korea and Europe, but when NA catch up, which they will catch up for sure, in terms of gameplay, I think NA ADs are going to be the best again. And then in terms of top lane, I think Korea has the best. So, you know, every lane has its up and downs in every region.
That's like a general, which region has the general best players? Does that mean there aren't like one player for each region that could be considered as good as these players? So for example, is Voyboy not as good as the Korean tops? What do you think?
I think Voyboy is really good, but if I think about it carefully, I would say Kevin from my team is better than Voyboy. But people is rating Voyboy so high because he in the environment he's playing at, he's against NA top laners. We will see when Curse fights against SK, who's the better top laner, you know? So you cannot really, I mean, it's like American soccer. People might be fan of Angeles Galaxy or whatever, but if Angeles Galaxy come to Europe to play, they will get owned, you know? That's how it works. So people is just being the fans of obviously their teams, but those teams are actually playing against teams that are actually at the same level. When they change regions, things totally change.
So when you gave me that specific example, okay, so you think Kevin from your team, the top laner, is better than Voyboy, who's a very popular player, obviously. What comes to your mind when you think of the differences between them? What makes you say Kevin's better in that sense? Is there something specific? Is there something that he's better at than Voyboy?
Well, that kind of stuff you cannot really tell why. He just gives me the feeling that I will always be able to count on him, you know, being fair. As he always can count on me being fine, you know. I will never be underfed or something, or burly, like. So yeah, I think it's something related with being solid in offline tournaments more than anything else.
Since, like I was mentioning, when we talk about the Asians, I mean, there's so many names you can list off. They're getting very famous now because of the more tournaments they go to in the West. Are there any specific mid players in Asia, so Korea or China or Singapore or whatever, you know? Any specific ones that come to your mind? Like, these are the ones immediately you think of, like, this guy's amazing at mid.
Toys and Rapid, sir. Toys, the TPA Toys, and Frost Rapid, sir. I think those two guys are at the European mid lanes level. They're pretty good. And actually, I have a very good relationship with Rapid Star. We always speak about Milan and stuff. Well, there is a barrier language, language barrier, sorry. But yeah, we speak a lot about it and we have a lot of fun together, yeah. It's really awesome.
Well, okay, adding up what you've told me so far then about the mids and the ones that stand out to you, do you think do you get a sense that fans, for whatever reason, maybe overrate Asian players at the moment then? Because, I mean, if we think back through the trends in League of Legends, obviously NA were like the kings early on and they have all the big name players, people watching them stream. EU with Moscow 5 coming up, teams like this, then they got like a little bit of shine, people saying, oh, EU's the best now. Now the Asian teams are coming, and obviously people who've gone to Asia as the foreign teams haven't done very well. So now it's kind of in vogue to say like, oh no, my favorite player is this Asian. You think they're getting a bit overrated at all?
I think Asians are not overrated. I think they live up to, how you call it actually? They live up to the people's, what is the phrase I'm looking for? They live up to the people's hype basically. Like, they really are playing incredible, and they are not overhyped. They are. It's just all the credit they got is well deserved. On the other hand, I don't think Americans were that good in the past. I think that was overhyped. America is full of hype. Like, let's be honest. But I like it. I kind of like it. So you could say that when America was on their best moment, Europe was at least tied, and we were in a very bad situation by then. So yeah, I think right now Asians are the best. Then European comes, and then NA.
So you think when people, I mean, part of the reason why, actually, when I broke it down there, is sort of because these were the tournaments where, you know, NA had all the tournaments, then Europe got like IEM, etc., and then we've got these Asian tournaments coming. So I mean, when people say things like, oh, you know, Fat Lip was amazing back in like season 1 or whatever, or they say something like, oh, Scaro is so smart at his position, or people obviously used to be huge fans of Reginald when TSM used to win everything in America. Are these guys overhyped at all? Are these specific examples who actually stand out from what you were saying there?
Reginald, Hotshot, all those guys are pretty good, and they got the credit they got is totally deserved. But when it comes into talking about teams, team performances, I think NA got a little bit hyped in the past. In terms of players, I always said that for me, Reginald is the best mid laner of NA. And back in the day, Hotshot was a beast in top lane. He was the one that started using Nidalee and stuff. So, in my opinion, the credit they got is totally well deserved. And right now, they are receiving a lot of hate by the community, and that is not good. That is really not good. People tend to ignore the fact that in the past they were really important for the community. So, my props to them, and head up.
Okay, so early on in your time in SK, you had this period at the end of 2011 where you got Snoopeh, you got Wickd, you had this nice little run at the IEM Global Challenges, but then obviously those two players left. They went on to form CLG. CLG's obviously been a really, really top-level team since then. They've done a lot of great things. At the time, did you know that these two guys were as good as they are?
I think, well, they were in my team, so I thought they were really good. But
did you know they were as good as they went on to be?
When they left, when I saw the team they had, I was like, this team could actually do pretty good. And I didn't even know Froggen. And then in the first tournament, I saw Froggen and I said, this guy is the best of the world. This guy is going to carry the whole team. And he did during a lot of tournaments. Right now, he's not been able to do it. I don't know how he's going to do it.
Okay, when I phrase this, people watching, bear in mind I don't know that much about League of Legends, so I'm not trying to start any drama here. But the reason I ask is, okay, so you had Wickd, you had Snoopeh in your team just before CLG began. You had a nice little run with them. Like you're saying there, a lot of people could say, okay, so, well, the basic main core of CLG, the EG team now, is Froggen, and he's so powerful, and a lot of the team's built around him. So is it that they look amazing playing with Froggen, or do you ever think to yourself, oh, what if we'd have kept them in SK somehow? What if, for whatever reason it happened, we could have just gone into 2012 with them on our team? Would it have been amazing then?
I think the way, I will be totally honest, I think the way CLG.EU, which right now is EG, plays, if I swap myself for Froggen, they wouldn't win anything. Because Froggen is extremely good mechanical skill-wise, and the team plays for him. He's a one-man army, literally, a one-man army. So when Froggen doesn't work, the team doesn't work. You could say the same about SK, okay? You could say the same about SK right now with me, but what I provide to the team is not only gameplay, but outside the game, that's why. But if you swap me for Alex Siege, for instance, the team will work as good in-game, but after the game it will have a lot of problems. So every single person adds something to the team. Froggen adds in-game literally everything, like the team EG is Froggen, in my eyes. Even though the other, don't get me wrong, the other teammates are pretty good. Like honestly, they are at the highest level. But Froggen is just incredible, mechanical skill-wise, and I add, apart from my gameplay, which is individual skill-wise, is not as good as Froggen's outside the game. So yeah, I think every team has its flag carriers, you could say.
Okay, that actually brings up another topic I wanted to go into, which kind of ties into some of the things I was saying before. So when I was mentioning before that, I mean, like I said, pick out any top Asian team and people will almost tell you every player is like the best in the world or top 5 in his position, What I wanted to ask about now is quite a subtle distinction that people don't tend to, which is, if you think about most League of Legends teams, okay, you can identify immediately who's like the guy really carrying them all, which positions do they play around, like which are the core ones they're trying to feed up, etc. So obviously you have a lot of experience with this yourself. When teams know exactly who, so they know with EG it's Froggen, they know in the past definitely you for SK, there's players like this, Double Lift for CLG comes to mind. They know, okay, this is like the best player or whatever, or the player that's going to be their team's focused around. So they're going to make their picks specifically against this guy, the bans, etc. And obviously they're going to attack knowing what his strengths are and all the rest of it. How different is it to be the guy where you know the other team's focusing on you and how to shut you down and neutralize you, versus obviously someone can be just as skilled as you, who plays the same position, mid for example, but on his team, the carry guy's the AD carry, or the carry guy's the top guy, and so he doesn't have all the attention on him, so maybe his stats might look better, or he can he doesn't have all the attention of the other team. Do you see the point I'm trying to make here? Like, what's the difference between the two, do you think?
Many people actually ask me this kind of question, not the same way, but and I got a pretty clear thought about this, which is when you drive the attention towards you instead of your teammates, you leave them pressure, Sorry. Yeah, exactly. They relieve the pressure. And that is something I learned to do over the last 4 years in esports. I did it with World of Warcraft too. And part of that building is in interviews when, for instance, people, I think I just remind right now, 2 years ago I got asked, who do you think is the best player of the world? I said, me, I'm driving the attention towards me, so my teammates are way less pressured, okay? They feel better, and they don't tell you that, but you can see how they feel better. And when you see in a tournament that you get 2 bans driven to yourself, you think, okay, I'm doing the things right, And when you see people coming mid lane, most of the time, you think about, okay, I'm doing the things right. And you can build strategies around it. But nowadays, it's not as much as it was in the past, to be honest, because the metagame has changed. And right now, top lane is such a huge lane to gank, where Kevin is. And people actually started to know that Kevin is a beast. So it really doesn't work anymore, the outbanning mid lane against us. But if you think about other teams like EG, it does work because EG is still a one-man army. SK is not. SK is a 5-man army, and all of us add something to the table. So all of us are quite important.
If we're still on the topic of you individually here, one of the positive things I've said people say, like looking at a lot of people's opinions, trying to get like an aggregate of it, is people have always said positively about you, like in the big games or the big tournaments, that's like when you were at your best. So even some of the people who are your haters or they say you're overrated, they say, yeah, sure, maybe he's not that good online, or in average games he's not as good as this player that they like more, but they credit like, okay, if it's like a big semi-final, then that's usually when you're at your best. Like, is this due to part of your play style? Is it like experience? Is it something to do with stage game? What do you think it is? Do you agree with it?
I agree with it, totally. And I tell myself, I tell the teammates even, that I'm pretty greedy in game, and I'm pretty like, I don't know how to clarify it. I really don't care too much, So in example, I'm 2-0-2, for instance, and suddenly I see a good chance to flash in with 20% HP and try to kill one guy. The chances to kill him 25% against 75, and I still do it if it's not a really important game. So, and I normally die, okay? And people are like, that sucks, But I actually have fun doing that, I know it's not the right thing to do, but I have doing that. I have fun, sorry. But if we are in a semi-final, finals or whatever, I don't do it. And that is a huge difference. People actually care too much about stats, I don't. You could see how a game of EG the other day, they were losing pretty hard, and there was some ways they could come back, okay? If Froggen would have flashed wall or something, okay, something really crazy, but if he pulls it out the right way, they could have actually came back, and he actually didn't do it, And he ended the game 1-0-0, even though they were getting destroyed. So stats don't matter much, and people don't see that. I do see that. That's why probably I'm here, and I'm gonna keep dying 7 times or 10 times if my team needs it.
When I looked over all the transfers that have gone in the SK LoL team, there's obviously been a lot, but I noticed the pattern that kind of... okay, so the overall pattern I noticed actually reminded me of something from Counter-Strike, which is, in Counter-Strike, teams who changed player, like the 5th player a lot, like maybe there were disagreements or they didn't think his skill level was big enough, oftentimes when they would bring in the new player, the first tournament or the first 2 tournaments, they would have like a little spike and they would do a bit better, and so they think, wow, we did a great change here, but then things would either go back to normal or a bit worse, and then they'd go out and then they'd think, well, let's do it again. And maybe they didn't recognize this pattern, but it would tend to happen like that. Because, obviously, maybe opponents are a bit surprised by a new lineup, something like this. Well, this seems in general to have happened with SK. Like a lot of the times you bring in a new player, then the next tournament you do quite well, then the level goes down, then you make a change again. Is this anything to do with why there's been so many player changes, like beyond just individual examples?
I think that is called placebo effect, and it just happens all the time. You get a new player and you're like wrecking and stuff. Oh, Mouse Sport is gonna be the best team, or I don't know, Millennium is gonna be the best team. Then the second tournament, after the one they won, they don't do that good. It's just called placebo effect. It's gonna happen forever. And the reason I changed players in the past wasn't because of the placebo effect was over, because I always count with the placebo effect, always. But the reason was that people started tryharding when they get into SK. They think they already touched the peak, you know? And the peak, I didn't even touch the peak yet, and look at it, and I'm ocelote, you know? I will always keep working to get to. There is no peak basically, and people actually think they already touched the peak. They never get anything in life. So that was my problem with some people. Like for instance, Ryan, I got no problem saying it. Ryan, when he got into SK, before he got into SK, he was actually pretty decent. He was pretty good. And afterwards, when he got into SK, he started tryharding. He started not respecting me or my teammates. He started not training as hard because he already thought he reached the peak, but he didn't. That's why he got kicked. Do you think if I stop winning, do you think if I stop playing good, people will recognize me as a star anymore? No way. If I don't keep getting good, if I don't keep playing good, if I don't keep making my team or helping my team playing good, there's no way I would succeed. So there's no peak.
When we talk only about European teams, one of the reasons why it's so noticeable that SK's had all these player changes is because the two biggest teams in Europe, so EG, Gambit Gaming, XM5, have had the same lineup basically since the beginning of 2012. They just never changed a player, but they've also been having a lot of results, so it's not as though they had like a really bad result then it was maybe in question. Do you ever look at those teams and think of any of the ones that you had and think maybe we should have just kept our 5 and just gone through any problems, or what do you think the difference between the two approaches are? I mean, could you have kept all 5?
I mean, that's pretty funny, you know, but because, so imagine I have to get a new jungler, and I get a new jungler, and I realize 2 months later that he's not good enough, or he doesn't have enough motivation. Should I keep him? It's pretty funny because there's 50 million players in this game. What makes people think that getting a random player will be the right move? The right move is gonna be when I get the right player, you know? If the right player is not that one, I have to change it. And it will not work until I have a good lineup. It's not about only gameplay, but after the game, we are together most of the time. There's a lot of stuff involved too, you know? If one guy is extremely annoying and gets annoyed by everybody and doesn't really want to add anything to strategizing, doesn't really want to, I don't know, accept when we tell him you should improve this or that, then that guy, even though he's a beast in game, he will be out because he's really toxic. So people think it's just go 5 people together, go together 2 years and you will wreck. Well, there's 50 million players and probably 15 million of them already tried that. Didn't work? Doesn't work like that. I mean, if I think about Gambit and EG, I look at them and say, I'm a little bit jealous because that lineup stayed together that long. I wish I could do that. Do you think people? I like kicking people out? Not really. But if I'm forced to because the people don't have the right mindset or this and that, have to be done.
When you had this middle period in the summer, basically, where there was a bunch of player changes, but then also on top of that, you kind of tried to do something new with the team. So, for example, let me think, what was it?
When I went top, you mean?
Yeah, you and Kevin switched positions. I mean, this is a pretty drastic change. If you look at most teams around the world, there's very few where they do a player change, a position change rather, especially a famous position, and it works. I can think of almost none. Maybe that guy for Frost who changed to bottom after Loco Dokolet. I think that's the only one I can think of, Swoon guy. But otherwise, I can't really think of any. So, I mean, what was it like desperation trying that move? Why did you do it? And does it ever work? Do you think people should just stick at their positions?
Well, this was part of the transition time. I told you, I was already changing my mindset, okay, and the way I work with my team. So by then, I wasn't good at mid lane. I wasn't really good at all. And when you don't play with your role, you don't have fun. And when you don't have fun, when you want to swap role, and you think swapping role is gonna change the fact that you suck, you know, but it doesn't. So I swapped top lane, thinking it will be more fun because I will win more often.
Did you think you get to 1v1 people all the time?
Yeah, exactly. I thought top lane was like a 1v1 lane, and I would be able to outplay the opponent, but I wasn't really good player by then. I had this clan, as I said, because of the transition. So you could say that was a mistake, but on the other hand, I will commit the same mistake again because I learned a huge lesson, which is when it comes down to gameplay, don't change drastic things and look at it as if you weren't yourself, like from a perspective of somebody else, you know. And if I would have looked at myself in the past, by then I would have thought, you're not playing good mid lane. You really have to improve as a player. And I did.
Okay, so actually on this topic then, before you made the switch, obviously when you don't play a position, it's easy to look at it and kind of have your own opinion on it until you've actually been in that position, you had to face all that. Was there a part of you when you made the switch that thought, okay, things aren't working, but you know, I've seen the guys I'm going to face at top here, you know, I'd get them, I'd outskill them, or you know, it'd be favourable for me? Was there part of this going through your mind?
I was thinking basically, I think the top laners are pretty bad and I'm going to be able to own them. But then when you're in the lane, you're like, holy moly, man. Like, the jungler can come, timers, words, invis words, lane control, creep wave is really, really different. And then mid lane, when Kevin went to mid lane, he did fine, okay, but he didn't do as good as a mid laner, you know? Roaming, helping your jungler, went to do raids, went to farm, went to not farm, went to miss and lose creeps on purpose. It's really totally different. Totally, it was a mistake, but a mistake I would commit again, as I said.
So actually, still on the topic of one of the roster changes, so one we haven't mentioned is Araneae. And obviously, this was like in the news recently since he made this interview, and he kind of complained about things, and he didn't really like the way the kick had happened from SK. But what I wanted to ask was there an element of that thing, the theory I've describing before, where when you get someone new in, you kind of get this little burst, because obviously you had this nice performance at the regionals when he came along, and then afterwards things went quite badly to some degree. Was this kind of the thing in play behind him coming in the team and then leaving the team?
Well, I think that he got kicked because he stopped performing fine, okay? In Gamescom, he performed fine, okay? Good enough. But I think Gamescom was carried by Kevin and me, and you could see in every game. So, even though I really think he did fine. He was in a really good level by then. But afterwards, he had a clamp, and he wasn't playing good for several months. It didn't work out, and not only that, then after the game, some stuff happened too. I was probably the only one in the team that wanted to give him one more chance. People don't know that, and actually, they shouldn't even know that. I shouldn't have said it, but I was the only one that actually wanted him to stay. At least a tiny bit more, one more chance. Didn't work out.
Okay, one thing I wondered about was, obviously, especially during your time, the SK League of Legends name has been very big, and even times when the team hasn't done very well at a tournament, the profile of the team is always still huge, and people think of it as a top team in Europe. So, is there a reason why a lot of the player changes have been maybe less well-known players or not as big profile players? Like, when you see let's think of a football team, for example. Someone like Barcelona, if they change a player, chances are they probably will bring in another big player, or Real Madrid or something. They'll bring in like a star acquisition, you know, to make things better. Has this ever been on the table for SK? Have you ever seriously been trying to get like a big star over here? Is it the case that you try to bring in people who are not as big stars, but for a specific reason?
Not really. Like if we would have got the chance to get really, really good players, we would have got them, you know. But most of them were already in a team, and I don't have the opinion of stealing players, you know. I think I wouldn't do that. Like, if I'm honest, I will never think about, okay, we need a player for this role, let's ask EG, or let's ask, you know, bad idea. Now with the LCS, that you can actually buy out the contract and stuff, which is more professional, I will do it, if we got the money for it, which we don't, but I will do that. But yeah, not anything special, no, I just wanted a good player, basically.
So with all the roster changes and the up and down results, like good result here, bad result there, okay, let's go to the original criticism, which is people say, oh, Ocelote's not as good as the carry role anymore, he's not the star or whatever. What would you put forward as the reason as to why, even with all the changes, SK still manages to have a good result every now and then, or a big result every now and then? Like, is it something about like the style that the team has, like the overall approach? Is it you as a player? What do you put it down to, even with all the millions of players coming in now?
Well, I think it's. I mean, who doesn't want to see this is totally blind or a hater. If I'm been at the top for 2 years and a half with the same team, I mean with the same organization, and me being the captain, with around 20, I think it was 22 different players have gone in these lineups, and we are still at the top. We were always at the top, or most of the time at the top. People should think about what could be the reason. I will not say anything else.
Okay, so actually you touched on it there, the Gamescom result. This was a big tournament, not only because you needed to qualify for the World Finals, but because at the time, CLG, as I remember in my mind, had just beaten M5. And so at the time, people were like hot on CLG, oh, maybe they're the best team in Europe, because M5 had been considered like the best team, maybe the best team in the world. So people were thinking, okay, the final's definitely going to be M5 versus CLG. You kind of like threw a banner in the works there, you beat them in the semi-final in this epic game. What comes to your mind as the reason why you were able to beat them in this game?
We just got the will to win, and I look at League of Legends and my esports career as a gift by God or whoever the hell is providing me this, the universe or whatever, and the way I approach every game and every tournament is so special that you cannot even imagine. Like I wake up in the morning and I say thank you very much for having the chance to play this. I think it's the will to win and the mindset, man. As I said, like by then they were better than us, but we beaten them with the heart. And we will do it again.
I mean, a lot of people, obviously, even after a result, would have still said, okay, CLG is still better, but SK won that game. Was there a degree of what you were mentioning before, actually, where sometimes, like, you're willing to take risks that are maybe not, like, the biggest chance to win, but, like, it's like an opportunity there? Was there a degree of this in winning those games?
Well, by then, they were better, okay? I recognize that. Now they're not. So, by then, I think we won with the heart, because we basically, I think we scared him. Pretty much a lot. Like every kill we had, I went really mad, I was like, yeah, even though it was like thousands of people in the same room, they were hearing me, and they were hearing me yelling their names, like Creepo and stuff. So they were actually a little bit shy, and I think the gameplay didn't win that, the heart did.
Was winning that game and getting to the final of Gamescom when people were kind of counting you out, was that like the peak of your League of Legends career so far?
The peak of the League of Legends career could be that, yeah. But my best moment, I think it was in 09 when I qualified for BlizzCon, World of Warcraft. That was like, oh my god, that was insane. Imagine, I mean, if you see how I felt in Gamescom, crying and stuff from happiness. Imagine the tears of joy I had as well in 09, But yeah, man, it was really, like, you live up. Those moments are the moments that pay off. All the work and all the comments in forums of haters and shit. Those moments are the ones that really pay off.
So, I mean, in League of Legends at least, that was the peak, because a couple of months later, obviously the World Finals, this must be one of the lows, because you must have gone in thinking like, we'll get out of our group, then we'll do, all this, etc., and then you didn't get out of the group and you got beaten by everyone. I mean, describe this moment for me. What was going on? Because, I mean, it was such a big tournament. It was like the biggest moment for League of Legends itself at the time. So what was it like to not even kind of be in contention when these playoffs were happening?
Well, I would blame myself or the team, but I will not, because it wouldn't be true, The reason we lost is because Yellowstar couldn't train, and if Yellowstar cannot train, we cannot train. So we trained 3 days before World Finals, when other teams were training for 2 weeks, 14 hours a day. You cannot fight against that.
Okay, one of the final topics I want to get to with you is, I mean, I mentioned before kind of the way fans, they'll sometimes go to like the hot new name as like that's the thing they're all on. Oh, he's the best, that team's the best. You can especially see this with results, because, okay, Moscow 5 was winning all the European tournaments, well, they must be the best. Then the Korean teams, every time one of them wins, someone says, oh, they're the best team in the world, maybe Frost or something like Blaze. And then obviously the big example is the Season 2 finals. TPA Assassins hadn't been so highly ranked before the finals. Then afterwards, everyone's like, oh, yeah, they're no doubt they're the best team. They were always going to win. Yeah, I knew they'd win, etc. Do you feel like at the moment in League of Legends, there is a clear-cut, like, #1 team? How big do you think the group is of like the teams at that level?
I think I'm always like this, I'm always like, the team that won is the best team. Maybe not overall, but they were the better team in the brackets, they were the better team in tournament in general, so they're the best team right now. Next tournament, we will see. So imagine right now in this tournament, imagine Pain, the Brazilian team, wins IM, which is possible, obviously. Then they will be the best team of the world, at least that came here. That is my opinion. Some people will not accept it, but it's my own opinion. Like, the way you perform 1 or 2 days, if it's extremely good, okay, that doesn't make you a worse team than other teams, you know? You just played better at tournament, you deserve the credit for it. So whoever wins this tournament, for me, is going to be the best team of the world.
In terms of the way a team is set up, okay, so their strategy going in, like, these are our best players, here's who we're going to play the team around, etc. Obviously, it's easy to pick like mid or AD carry as like your main guys, etc. because they're such skill-intensive roles. But if you look around the world, there's players at every position who are considered incredibly good. You've got like Mad Life's a support player, you've got Macnoon's a top player, there's junglers who are considered really, really super sick. If we ignore all the different metas and all the different small changes in League of Legends across its history, if you had to look back across the history of League of Legends so far, what do you think the most successful style of team would be? Which players should it be focused around? Do you think if like you were theoretically building like a dream team like that, what style of player should it be around, do you think? What positions?
You mean names?
Just in general first.
Okay. I think a team needs to have aggressiveness, okay? They need to be aggressive and the opponent needs to know that they're aggressive. The team needs to be not committing many mistakes, okay? So they need to have this mindset of, I won't be greedy, I won't be, you know what I mean? Stupid mistakes that cost games. And team needs an extremely smart color. Extremely smart. In my eyes, even though Yellowstar, in my eyes, is not the best AD carry of the world, his calls are really good. And I say it clearly. Yellowstar's calls are one of the best. I mean, he's one of the best callers of the world, in my eyes. Those three things are really crucial.
In terms of actual positions, though, like, okay, I would build. Okay, let's think of it this way. You know, if you have like a. Okay, if you play a role-playing game, you get a set number of points at the beginning. You can pick, okay, I want like 10 strength here, but that means I don't have as much to put into like smarts over here. You know, you spread out the points where you want them to make your ultimate character. Like, which positions would you put the most emphasis on if you were creating this ultimate team in League of Legends? Just what do you think would be the most successful through history? You know, which position should we focus on?
I think every position has the same impact.
Okay.
I honestly think so. I think the top lane guy, I would actually pick everybody from my team right now, one by one, the names, me included. Because, like, for example, Neve doesn't get much credit, but he's the guy I would put in every single team. You need one guy like him. You need one guy like Neve. He's not cocky. He has no ego. He's pretty easy to deal with, and he's easygoing. When there's a little discussion, he's like calming down, or he's not talking. You know, he's the kind of guy that you want in the team. Then you need a guy that like Forrest in CS, which I would say is Kevin. Kevin is Forrest. He's the guy that doesn't really care too much, okay? And you can feel how he doesn't really care too much. He doesn't really try hard too much, but somehow he wrecks, okay? Then you need the jungler that is extremely smart, and he has to calculate really fast. This typical cold person, okay? That knows when to go aggressive, knows when to don't. He needs to have no ego because he's the one that helps the lanes. And then you got the AD carry. He needs a lot of patience. He needs to not go crazy when he's losing the lane because the solo lanes can actually carry. And I would say that the AD carry is the one that should make the calls. I really think so. And the support, maybe mix it out. And Candy every now and then takes the caller role, which he does it pretty well. Normally I do it, but every now and then he does it, and he does it pretty well. And he has a lot of patience, he's an extremely good player, team fight. And then you need a leader. The leader has too many things, like I could use like 5 pages to write down what a leader means, you know? you need to provide your teammates that they can trust you. And they can trust you not only in game, they can trust you outside the game, you know? And when they, I don't know, when they want to hide something from the organization or something, you know, when they got, okay, I forgot this, I forgot that, you help them, you know, for instance, I don't know, stupid things like that. A leader is not only in game telling you do this and that, because I'm not the best at it, you know, I'm not the best caller, I'm not the best at making setups. We do it as a team. But outside the game, dude, it's such an important factor, I learned it, and having leadership is, I don't know, it's so great, you need it. So those 5 factors.
So do you think then the reason why most teams are built around these certain positions, or people think of like AP mid, AD carry as like the ultimate positions, you think this is more just like because everyone thinks that way in general and nobody's really thought outside the box? I mean, for example, could you really have a team, like let's say we get the best jungler in the world, the best support player in the world, and then the other 3, it wouldn't?
It wouldn't work. It will not work, 100%, because the most important point is called egos, you know?
No, I know what you're going to say. I didn't mean best for every position. I just mean if we tried a weird setup, like, okay, my 2-star players are going to be just my jungler and just my support, everyone else will be the less skilled players or just the okay players, would that really work if all the positions can work?
Not really. Every player needs, every player has strengths and, I mean, weaknesses and good points, you know? I think the mid lane and top lane need to be really good mechanical skill-wise, and the jungler needs to have really smart choice very fast. And the AD carry needs to have better positioning. The support needs to not be cocky and, you know, give this chill mood to the team and have a lot of well-done times of the game. I don't know. I think it's a whole, man. I think it's a whole, honestly. If you take the best of, as I said, if you take the best on every role, it won't work.
Okay, my last question's an imaginary one, okay? So all the seriousness, we don't have to worry about that. So aliens come to Earth, and they say, basically, you remember the movie Space Jam? Okay, so in this movie, Michael Jordan had to play for the fate of the Earth with all these amazing basketball players. It's like that, okay? Aliens come to Earth, they say, we're going to destroy Earth, but we really love this game, League of Legends, and we've got some sick players, these alien players. So Ocelote is the captain of Team Earth, okay? You have to pick the players, and you can pick anyone in the world. But remember though, the fate of the Earth depends on it. So if you lose this game, we're all dead, dude. So you have to pick the best players for each position. Who would you put forwards?
I would put myself mid lane. I would need a little bit of time, though. I only need 2 months with the teams to make them get to know me. I will be mid. Nif will be support, Candy Panda will be 80, Kevin will be top, and Yon will be jungle. I promise you I will do that. I promise you. I wouldn't pick anybody else from anywhere. I wouldn't pick Mandun, even though he's like, for the people, the best top laner. I wouldn't pick Stanley because of the same reason. I wouldn't pick Double Leaf because of the same reason. I wouldn't, because it wouldn't work. I want the people to survive, you know. I want the world to not explode. So we will rape the aliens, man. We'll destroy the aliens, 100%.
Okay, any final words? Someone you want to thank, say hello to?
Well, thank you very much to the fans. I always say it, man. I always say it, and actually people is telling me that it's getting boring, but I don't give a fuck, because I will always say thanks to the fans. You're the reason I'm here, and the reason he is here, the reason we are all here and we can play this tournament. Thank you very much, and I hope new SK fans and Ocelote fans appear. Thank you to the sponsors, thank you to DigiBet, which actually helped me a lot. Not only as, I mean, I'm their testimonial, but they actually helped me a lot. Thanks to Data as well, and to every SK sponsor. Thank you very much. And thank you to Acer as well for letting me do this interview.
Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you very much.